He's definitely the Broncos quarterback of the future, man. You know when a guy got it, that it factor. You know when he got it or not.
I had a guy. His name was Peyton Manning. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He had whatever it is. He had it.
He had a lot of it. I saw on Twitter, like, you like to call him Bo Vic.
Bo Vic. Bo Vic. Yeah, man. Bo out there, like, deceptively really moving on cats.
Bo has that. I see it. He's very athletic, and he's got a great arm.
In addition to having your head coach and your quarterback, having consistency with what you're doing, I think is really important.
Hello, and thank you for joining us here on Broncos and Bourbon. I am your host, Phil Milani. The Combine has wrapped up. I'll get to my thoughts on that in just a little bit here. Plenty of news coming out of Indianapolis surrounding this Broncos team. But first, this is sort of a special episode of the podcast because I had this idea to go back to last season and pull answers from all the former players that were guests on the program when they were talking about Bo Nix. And I went through and I started looking back at old episodes, and I realized there is a lot to be excited about just based off of the answers I was getting throughout the course of the year. And so obviously we saw what the year developed into and became, but to some of these guys, it was even apparent as early as week 3 with Jake Plummer, who he was on the show, and on and on and on over the course of the year. I thought it was interesting just to hear what these guys were saying, week 7 or whenever it was during the course of the year. And of course, as the year went on, we saw what Bo was able to do during his rookie campaign. So anyway, I thought that this was sort of a fun idea to go back and listen to what all these great former Broncos players had to say about Bo Nix and why they're so excited for the future here of this franchise quarterback. So we'll get into that. We'll do a bourbon review on the other end of this, and also talk about the Combine. But first, please enjoy this as it's a compilation episode of all these former Broncos greats. What are your thoughts on how Bo Nix has looked these first couple of weeks?
Yeah, I'd say he's looked like a rookie. And looks like a kid that's got a lot of talent, tons of arm talent, is mobile. From what I can see from a distance, is a leader that guys appreciate his style and what he's doing and how he goes about his daily business and getting the job done. And that's really important. I think we can dive into that later. But if you're a quarterback, you got to have the guys around you believing and confident in what you're doing. He's a rookie, but he's also he's been on a couple different teams in college, so he knows how to get to know his teammates. That's not going to be a problem. If he's legit, he's genuine, he's authentic, he's consistent, and he's putting in the work, guys are going to see that. And then that in turn, whether he's a rookie or not, that's what you want from your main guy back there calling the plays. And he's an athlete, man. I've heard some stuff about him, being a really good basketball player. And if you play basketball, to me, that's a sign that you're a good athlete. And I think he's really athletic. He's quicker. He's really quick. And quickness in this game is super important because look at Mahomes. Mahomes ain't going to flatter you with a 40 time, but his quick twitch movements, like his ability to just move the hip 3 inches and make that guy barely get a finger on him instead of getting his whole hand. Bo has that. I see it. He's very athletic and he's got a great arm. But if you're patient, you may see something really beautiful happen because I believe watching him that he's got all the talent and everything you need. Now it's just a matter of those opportunities happening and him making those plays and they win a couple games here and there. And now all of a sudden, Bo is the answer.
I can see behind you. You believe in Bo. You're a Bo lever.
I'm a Bo lever. I had that up for Nate Jackson has a podcast, so I put that up and I was like, I'm going to leave that because I think people need to know it's better to believe in Bo than to not. And that energy and that feeling, he's going to feel that.
You played with Jake. How can a quarterback's athleticism help you as a pass catcher?
Yeah, immensely because they can extend the play and then you can find yourself getting open late. At practice, every once in a while, we would do a drill called scramble drill, and that is when the quarterback gets out of the pocket, as a receiver down the field, you have to give him a throw. And depending where you are on the field, you either come back towards him, you go deep, or you come parallel to him. And, as he's running, towards the sideline, you run with him and give him a throw on that sideline. So all those guys drill that at practice. And when you have a quarterback who is athletic like Bo and sneaky athletic, I think people are taking notice now of how athletic he is, and defensive coordinators are going to start paying attention to that. But a quarterback who can get outside the pocket like him, incredibly valuable to an offense. The wide zone that we did, the stretch zone, a lot of keepers came off of that, a lot of the play action, and Jake would get out of the pocket and just make magic happen, whether he was dumping it off, whether he was throwing the deep cross, whether he was throwing down the field, or he was taking off and getting it with his legs. So there's a lot of options there for a smart quarterback who knows how to get down.
I love the progression of Bo Nix. I think he has really improved at different things with each new opportunity to start, and even against the Jets. At one point having a negative yards for passing stat. No quarterback wants that. But what many people lose in that stat is he came back and he won the game, right? Maybe it wasn't pretty, but there are no ugly W's, no ugly waffles, wins, wives. You go through the list, there are no ugly W's. So the character to push through failure is equally as important as production. And you still consider this is Bo Nix's first 4 starts. Phil, you and I's first 4 broadcasts were not our best, even if we felt good about them at the time. So the progression of Bo Nix, while having a stout defense to help reinforce some of the wins that they've gotten, the 2 wins they've gotten through some of the mistakes on the offense, has been tremendous to see, and is encouragement for every fan in Broncos country.
I went back and started breaking down a bunch of his tape and started really looking at him. It's endemic of college quarterbacks in general. When, all they've done is played shotgun football. And oftentimes in the college game, that first guy that you're reading your progression is open. And you're getting a lot of zone coverage. They're not changing a lot of things up because of the pace with which you play. So you're always throwing it to the first dude. And so deadly accurate, really on time with the football. It's really when you get to that second and third read in your progression, when you have to start hitching up in the pocket and moving your feet. Like that's when there's almost a frenetic nature to his feet, and his feet aren't timing up necessarily with the routes because it becomes a little bit sped up, if you will. And I think, like I said, that's really endemic of a lot of young quarterbacks that you watch come out of the college game where everything's primarily gun, and getting into the NFL game where you're still in gun, but now it's gun and you've got to tie your feet to this, the progressions. And then it's some, 20, 25 plays, maybe 35, 40% is under center. So it really becomes a very fine footwork situation. The West Coast offense, they always say you throw the ball with your feet. The timing of the offense is kept in the quarterback's feet. And it's something that Joel Klatt, who, we had on our radio show today on 104.3 The Fan, talked about. The timing of the offense is kept, it's held, the timing, the clock of the offense is held in the quarterback's feet. And that's what you see with young quarterbacks. So I think that that's going to get dramatically better as the season progresses. I would expect him, he's a smart dude. I would expect him to be able to work through those things. Again, it's just like anything else. It's an adjustment. And Shanahan, Mike used to tell, I had a deal with Mike where I interviewed him once. I was writing for ESPN, the magazine, and just asking him about, that progression for quarterbacks. And he was like, it really takes 2 years and, into your third season before you really, the offense just becomes second nature to you. It's just like you just understand it. You just feel it. And I always say, as a player, you never know what you like or what you don't like until you've gotten your ass whipped doing something. And you're like, now I know the pitfalls of that particular play.
What do you see about his game? Because it feels like he doesn't always look like a rookie out there.
He exactly. That's what it is. He real mature. I mean, he's an older guy. He played a lot of football games in college. So I think you could see that experience, man. Nothing beats in-game experience. So that's how you get better as a player. And he did it on a high level. So you can just see that confidence, that experience. A lot of the situations he's that's coming upon him, he's been in them before. So, man, he's a poised quarterback. He's running the show, man. I love to see it. He's definitely the Broncos quarterback of the future, man. You know when a guy got it, that it factor. You know when he got it or not. I've seen him on TV yesterday talking about just how they move on from quarterbacks too quick. But I'm like, you know if he got it or not from the jump. You know if he got that it. If he can be an extension of the head coach and grab his group and inject that confidence into them guys, man. It's the guys know if he got it or not, and Bo Nix has it.
Really, I know you played obviously with Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. I mean, some
Right.
great quarterbacks here. What is it? What is that if factor? And do other guys in the locker room know if the quarterback has that?
Man, the other guys in the locker room definitely know. It's small conversations going on in that locker room. Like, man, he got it, or man, he don't have it. So I think that it's just that confidence, man. That leadership that you get in the huddle and he called that play, and it got to be a certain confidence about it. Like, man, hey, we finna execute this play the way we want to execute it. And for a guy on defense, just playing against those guys in practice and OTAs and things like that, you can just feel it, man. You can feel when that offense could be for real, or you feel like, oh, our offense ain't really doing nothing, or you feel like, hey, we could be nice, and that injects energy to the defense. So if they feel like they can win, the offense feel like they can win, man. You 5-3 halfway through the season, and you the Broncos right now. So it's all about a vibe to me, man. I don't feel like talent don't win games. Talent don't get you nowhere, man. It's all about how close the team is and how energetic, how confident that team is. Everybody in the league, Phil, everybody got good players. It's all
Yeah.
about that camaraderie in that building, and that starts with the head coach and the quarterback, in my opinion.
I see a guy where the game looks like it's slowing down a little bit for him. He's getting more comfortable with the offense, more comfortable with the speed of the NFL game. His footwork was a little bit of a question mark early. That seems to have gotten a little bit better. So that's what we want to see, progress. A little bit of progress, but also understanding that it's not going to be perfect.
How much of the offense do you think is on his plate now? Like, because last week against Baltimore, for a while there, it felt like he was rolling, like he was hitting some good passes and stuff. You feel like Sean Payton has opened things up for him, or do you think that there's still a very measured approach with what they're putting on his plate?
I think overall, Sean has kind of opened it up and said, let's go. Sean trusts Bo. You can tell that he really likes him, and it's all how much can the young quarterback handle? Bo's very smart, played a lot of college football, so it's a fine balance there between just saying, "Hey, let's go. Here's everything. We're just going to go play football." To all right, we got to kind of still realize he is a young quarterback that we're trying to develop. You don't want to put too much on his plate, but I think he's a guy that can handle it. And one of the great things that from the outside looking in with Bo is, man, it's just he loves to compete. He loves the environment, and even if there are struggles, in a game or maybe two games or a quarter or a half, it's not going to affect him moving forward. He's got that mental makeup to be able to go through a little adversity and fight through it. And I think that goes back to how many games he started in college, transferring from Auburn to Oregon, and it wasn't always perfect, but he just battled through it, and we've seen that through 9 games here with the Broncos.
I was talking to Aqib Talib, and he said that the other guys on offense, or even just throughout that locker room, they know when a quarterback has it. Like there's like a feel throughout the locker room where you have like extra confidence just because you know that your quarterback has it. Is that true? Have you experienced that in the locker room where you're just like, our quarterback has it? Like we've got more confidence going into matchups.
Oh, certainly. I had a guy. His name was Peyton Manning. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He had whatever it is. He had it.
He had a lot of it.
Certainly, he had a bunch of it. Because you always know you got a chance when you got that dude at the quarterback position. You always know you have a chance, and maybe it doesn't always work out, but you always believe. And certainly playing with Peyton, I saw that, and it's a nice feeling to have, but it's not just like, key. It's not just offensively, it's defensively, it's special teams, it's coaching staff, it's everyone in the building believes that you always have a chance when you have that guy. And I do believe that Bo has it.
This whole city has Bo Nix fever. What do you think about this rookie quarterback?
He's playing amazing. He's playing amazing. He's mature. We all knew he was an older quarterback coming out, so should be mature. But being a coach's son, you can tell he's all about doing things the right way, being coachable, and just learning. And he's doing an amazing job. He's staying within the system. Coach Payton is doing a great job of going slow with him, running the ball, keeping defenses off balance with the screens.
I saw on Twitter, like, you like to call him Bo Vic.
Bo Vic. Bo Vic. Yeah, man. Bo out there, like, deceptively really moving on cats, and they don't expect it. But like you said, I used to not like Bo. He's at Auburn, and they beat us at Oregon. And then he came to Oregon. I'm like, cool, I'm a Bo Nix fan. And then we drafted. I'm like, oh, man, I'm a Super Bo Nix fan now. So, yeah. I think we may have to put Bo up there. Like, I don't think he's in the Herbert category. I think he's definitely in the Hurts, Murray, Lamar. He's in that. He may be the only white guy in there, but he's for sure in that group.
It seems like ever since he had that encounter with Sean on the sideline, like that Ferris Bueller type moment there, he's really just taken off since then.
Yeah, you look back and you compare and contrast, and it's impossible to not compare that to the moment that happened last year with Russell Wilson on the sideline when Sean just started laying into Russ, and Russ just took it and didn't say a word. And then when Bo Nix starts chirping back, you knew that that's what Sean's looking for. And I think that the Russell Wilson situation last year was existing, continuing to exist, and it probably would have continued to exist. And then honestly, it's just my opinion, I think that moment on the sideline was the straw that broke the camel's back. Sean was just like, look, this isn't my guy. He doesn't have the fight in him that I want. And you look at that in Bo Nix, and it's almost like he's a clone of Sean Payton.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, when he's out there, like, even against the Raiders, like, he had that crazy eyes moment, out on the field. And does that sort of energy and that type of fire, do the other guys on the sideline feed off of that?
Yeah, it's contagious. Energy is always contagious, and especially when it's coming from your quarterback. I mean, you don't want your quarterback to be a wild man. You don't want him to be out of control, and Bo Nix is not out of control. But for a young QB, Bo's doing a really solid job of just being a bit of a gravitational force that guys are going to follow that energy and try to match it.
How do you think he's handled that, like that balance of, hey, I'm this leader, I've got this fiery competitive spirit here, but I realize, like, hey, I'm leading a locker room full of grown men, and I need to approach that delicately.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect mindset because, although they do, I would say, revere him, because it's been a long time since we had somebody be as effective as he's been at the quarterback position, especially with him being, a rookie. So he's handled that situation, I would say, flawlessly. But the guys, they respect him. They respect him, and he doesn't want to overstep his bounds by becoming too vocal. And they're like, "Oh, slow down." I think I want him to come to him and say, "Yeah, you're still a rookie now, so
go get my donuts."
Yeah, and he may do some of that. But I think the quarterbacks would have him doing. I think it's just position based where you have guys doing those kind of things, but. It's great chemistry though, man. You can just see it amongst the entire team, man. Those guys get along well and they're playing for each other.
What was John like in the locker room? Like, how did the whole team look up to him? Because obviously, he had proven himself and had all the credentials, but he also had tremendous leadership skills too, right, Steve?
Oh yeah, 100%. And many times you judge a player not only by what his play is like and what he's like in the locker room, but what he's like off the field. And John, we always had events where we would he would be there participating and having fun, and we're like, oh man, that's cool. John Elway's here with us, and that I think that helped bond us together and help guys who would normally get a chance to spend much time with him get a chance to see, hey, how is John outside of football?
What do you think is the biggest reason to be excited about Bo Nix?
Well, for me, he matches today's quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, some individuals long for those days where you had that statuesque quarterback, and they want him to go through all this progression of reads and do all these things and just stay in the pocket. Even when things break down, stay in the pocket. Those quarterbacks did that because they had no mobility, right? The game has definitely changed. Look at, the Broncos played against Josh Allen this year. They played against Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. All of those guys are talented quarterbacks in their own right, and they move around. And the fact that Bo can move around, he can manipulate the pocket. And if the defense breaks down, it gives him an opportunity, he can take off and run. To me, that's today's game. It looks different. Some old school throwback coaches, they don't like that because they're not used to that. They didn't come up with that. But that's where the game is. The game is about growing and developing. And it's just like anything in life, either you adapt or you die. And watching Bo possess those skills, I mean, I'm really excited. The only thing for him is that he didn't have a prominent run game to support him, and he didn't have a viable tight end that he can throw to that was somewhat of a safety net, and then also shots down the field. We saw Marvin Mims come on late, and I was like, yes, this is what I was talking about. This is what I thought Marvin Mims was going to be this season after what we saw Marvin Mims do with Russell last season, and that would have helped Bo. But Bo has a lot of skills, and he's adapted well to Sean Payton's play calls because if you know Sean's system, it's really, really long. It's really, really wordy, and he did a great job just kind of trying to master that.
So many people talk about like a sophomore slump. How does he avoid that?
Just taking what the defense gives him, right? I think sometimes Bo might have passed up an easy throw to make a spectacular throw. So I think that's something that he'll start doing. Continue to just grow and command the offense, right? I think as you continue to go, you kind of want to make your own offense. Even though you got Sean Payton's offense, you still want to kind of start creating your own. Like, hey, Sean, these are my top 50 plays. Like, I want to, you know what I'm saying? Start creating your own system that fits you. Find plays that you like. Start, working with your receivers on these things, mastering those things. So that's what I think he can improve on next year. Continue to improve in the pocket. His feet, earlier he was a little antsy, but he improved that. He got calmer and calmer as the season goes. Continue to work on that. And, hey, he showed he can make all the throws. He showed that he can run. So now it's just continue to build the offense around him in the plays that he likes and in his system, right? Peyton had, of course, we had Kubiak's system, right? But Peyton had his own system. I'm pretty sure Tom Brady has his own system, right, that he brought with him to Tampa, So I think every quarterback should have their own type of thing outside of what the coaches do or with it, to fit kind of what they like to do.
How does he continue the momentum that he had this year into next year for Bo?
Well, he's a student of the game. He's always learning. He had 5 years of college experience. So I think that's a trend with NIL now and players getting paid a lot of money to stay in college. We're going to see more players with years of experience and less players that started for 1 year in college. And that's going to get them more ready to play in the NFL simply by having more reps and more experience. And they're actually older. Instead of a 20-year-old QB, it could be a 23-year-old QB, right? So Bo's in that class of quarterbacks that has a lot of experience. He had a really good rookie year. I think he was more prepared than most rookie quarterbacks. And so I don't even think of it as a rookie year almost. I know it was his first year and he was a rookie, but because of his experience and how ready he was to start the season, I don't think there's a slump. I think, he played on a team in college that went to bowl games, and played an extended season. So I don't even think the season was long for him. I think he's ready to go. Getting more used to the system, getting more used to your teammates will help you to improve. So, in addition to having your head coach and your quarterback, having consistency with what you're doing, I think is really important. So a lot of mistakes he made this year, he won't make again. but he had to make them to learn from them. So
Yeah.
he didn't make a lot, but there's a few balls he'd like to have back, especially early in the season. I think he learned a lot the first half of the season that he applied in the second. But that consistency helps, having the same playmakers around you or adding playmakers. And it's everything. It's learning to work your cadence. It's your protections. It's identifying defenses. It's noticing tells quicker. It's getting out of plays and into other plays. It's the timing with the routes of your receivers. All of that with repetition should improve.
So I thought that was fun to just go back and hear from all of those guys over the course of the year. And man, there is a lot to be excited about. They saw it on tape early in the year, Jake Plummer seeing that athleticism. And now, we obviously know what Bo was able to do during his rookie year. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, like and subscribe as always. But I thought that was fun. And also a good way to highlight some of the guests that we really get on this program. That's the whole goal of this show, is to be entertaining, informative, and bring in guys like that who really have the expertise to be talking about Broncos football here. So I hope that you enjoyed that. Now for my thoughts on the combine. Not anything too spicy, and I think that really speaks to where the Broncos are here. When you're picking in the top 10, you're looking for a quarterback, you're looking to turn things around. Maybe you just hired a new head coach. That's when the combine is exciting and there's like a lot of spicy news coming out of it. But when you're a good team and you're picking later in the draft, it's not quite as juicy. So that was my takeaway. If you look at all the stuff that Sean Payton and George Payton had to say, the Paytons here, they talked a little bit about their coaching staff and all the people who've left. That's what happens with good teams. Sean Payton talked a little bit about Bo Nix and the fact that his speed surprised him. Not the scrambling ability that Bo had, but his just pure speed. We heard Jake Plummer there talking about how his athleticism. And part of that was because Bo Nix did not run at the combine last year because he was dealing with some turf toe. So we learned that during our time during this last week in Indianapolis. So we also heard George Payton talk about meeting with agents with DJ Jones, Cortland Sutton. Sort of left the door open that Javonte Williams might be able to return. That would be highly unlikely, in my opinion. But I think that you've heard so much about the Broncos looking for this joker player, looking for a running back, looking for a tight end. I did think what George Payton had to say about NIL was interesting, how that affects how they scout these players coming out of college now, and the fact that now suddenly these guys have a little bit of money in their bank accounts. How does that affect how they view football? Is football still the number one thing? Is that still the main thing for these guys, even after they've got a little bit of money saved away, a little bit of money in their bank account? How does that change how they look at football? Are they still committed to this? Is it still their whole life? I thought that was sort of interesting from George Payton. But I will say the number one interesting thing, in my opinion, that came out of the combine was the fact that Sean Payton was asked directly, what is the number one thing you get out of being at the combine? And his answer was visiting with the players in person. That was directly from Sean Payton, okay? Then, come to find out, Ashton Genty, the presumed number one running back in this draft, the Heisman finalist out of Boise State, who had just an amazing year there. When the Broncos met with him, Genty says that Sean was not in that meeting. So if you ask me, that tells you a couple of things possibly. One, the Broncos believe that there's no way that Genty will be there at 20, and they're not really interested in trading up for him. And so maybe it's not worth it for Sean to be there. Or two, they feel that they're going to bring in Genty for a top 30 visit and that maybe something else was going on schedule-wise, that it was just not possible for Sean to be there, and that the tape really speaks for itself with Genty, and they're going to meet him in person in a top 30 visit. So those are the two things that maybe I took away from the fact that Sean Payton said that his biggest thing while being at the combine is meeting these players in person, and then he was not there with the player that so many people think that it could be a great fit for the Broncos. So who knows what that means? Really, in my opinion, unlikely that Genty will even be there at 20, and probably doesn't make sense for the Broncos to trade up at this point, certainly for a running back. So I don't know. Read into that what you will, but maybe the Broncos have had their sights set on somebody else in the first round, maybe one of these tight ends that so many people are speaking so highly of. So anyway, in my opinion, the combine is all about networking, talking to agents, talking to other GMs, talking to other scouts around the league, and getting a sense for what the market looks like during free agency. That's really what the combine is about, and also getting medical records on these players. That to me is what the combine is. So the fact that Sean wasn't there, not a huge deal in my opinion, but maybe it does say a little bit about what the Broncos are thinking with Genty. So those are my thoughts there. Time for this week's bourbon review here, and I'm doing Weller, the original wheated bourbon. Now, for people who aren't totally familiar with this comes from the Buffalo Trace Distillery, and the word out there is that Weller's, this wheated bourbon, has the same mash bill as Pappy, which is, sort of this illustrious bourbon out there now, but it's just not aged as long. So that's sort of the idea behind this Weller, and why it's sort of like, maybe it's starting to get, from what I understand, a little bit harder to find. But this bottle I bought for $22 from Costco. And I was just looking through the bourbon aisle there, through their liquor aisle, and there was a big commotion down on one end of the aisle. I walked down, I said, hey, what's going on here? And it was behind glass there at Costco. And I was like, I never even looked really in those, because, those are like $200 bottles there usually. And, I'm not usually buying that every day of the week here. So then I was like, what's going on? This was on there for $22, and you can only buy one bottle, and people were freaking out about it. And so I decided to get a bottle and review it on the show here. So if you can't find it, I would recommend giving it a try. Wheated bourbon means that in the mash bill, it's corn, and then the second grain there, typically in a bourbon, is rye, but in this, it's wheated, is wheat, and so that's going to give this a sweeter flavor, okay? That's sort of the idea. The rye will give you the spice, but because wheat is the second grain in the mash bill, this is going to be a little bit sweeter. And as you can tell, I've gotten into this a little bit here, so I'm glad there was still enough left here to do a review on the show, quite honestly. So I'll pour a little in here. Screw cap. What do you guys think about screw caps? Let me know in the comments here. I like the ease of it, but I do think that there's something cool about pulling the cork out of a whiskey bottle. So I sort of prefer the cork there, but you tell me what you think. Okay, so here's my Broncos Rocks glass. And I should mention that the proof on this is 45%, or 90 proof, 40% alcohol, 45% alcohol, and it's sort of like this ambery copper color. That's what I'll say about that. But yeah, it's sweet. You can feel off the nose, vanilla, caramel for sure, maybe a little bit of honey, but vanilla, I'm picking up a lot of that. I don't want to burn my nostrils here, but yeah, a nice sweet, and that's what you would expect with the wheat here. So, and the palate is sweet. It comes off very easy drinking. There's a touch of spice, but not really much, as you would expect in a wheated bourbon. But it's very smooth, and it's just sort of a nice. It's easy drinking, and that's at $22. That's pretty good. So, the finish lasts a little bit longer than I would have expected. Little bit of oak there, and yeah, this is nice. This is nice. I think that it's a lower proof at 90. That's why you also don't get much of that burn or that spice. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a nice bottle. If you could find that for $22, I mean, that is outstanding, I think. So for the value there, I think the MSRP is 24. So if you can find it around there, that's outstanding. But from what I've heard and what I read, it's extremely difficult to find. If you can find this, it's Weller, the original wheated bourbon. I guess they're saying that they were the first to do it here, sort of this wheated style. And now, obviously, there's a lot of other wheated bourbons on the market. So, yeah, I enjoyed that. I would definitely give this a try. Like I said, the rumor, there is no mash bill listed on this, but the rumor is that it's the same as Pappy, just not aged as long. So I guess that tells you a little bit about that. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that. If you can find it, give it a try. And hopefully you enjoyed the episode here. Just sort of a compilation of everybody given some reasons to be excited about Bo Nix. And, headed into the off season here, I think that that was one other thing that came out of the combine was that for an organization to have ownership now in place with the Walton Penner family group, to have George Payton firmly entrenched as the general manager, not much questions about him being the GM now. Sean Payton now heading into his third season with the Broncos, and now Bo Nix here as the franchise quarterback. To have those four all in solid positioning just gives you such a leg up. And so I do think that for those reasons there's a lot of excitement heading into this offseason and seeing how the Broncos can continue to build this thing because they're by no means like right there knocking on the doorstep, but they're building this thing and they're going to continue to build this thing and it's headed in the right direction. So you should be very excited about the position the Broncos are in here heading into the offseason. All right, that's going to do it for us. We'll be back with a guest here soon in a week or two. But for now, that's going to do it for Broncos and Bourbon. I'm Phil Milani.